James and the Giant Peach, written by Roald Dahl. So let's read. Let's read, shall we?
We shall.
Okay, what chapter are we on?
We are on chapter 8.
Yeah, we were on chapter 8. Oh, wait.
The news that a peach almost as big as a house had suddenly appeared in someone's garden spread like wildfire across the countryside. And the next day, a stream of people came scrambling up the steep hill to gaze upon this marvel. Quickly, Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker called in carpenters and had them build a strong fence around the peach to save it from the crowd. And at the same time, these two crafty women stationed themselves at the front gate with a large bunch of tickets and started charging everyone for coming in. Roll up, Aunt Spiker yelled. Only 1 shilling to see the giant peach. Half price for children under 6 weeks old, Aunt Sponge shouted. One at a time, please. Don't push. You're all going to get in. Hey, you, come back there. You haven't paid. By lunchtime, the whole place was a seething mass of women, men, and children, all pushing and shoving to get a glimpse of this miraculous fruit. Helicopters were landing like wasps all over the hill, and out of them poured swarms of newspaper reporters, cameramen, and men from the television companies. It'll cost you double to bring in a camera, Aunt Spiker shouted. All right, they answered. We don't care. And the money came rolling into the pockets of the 2 greedy ants. But while all this excitement was going on outside, poor James was forced to stay locked in his bedroom, peeping through the bars of his window at the crowds below. The disgusting little brute will only get in everyone's way if we let him wander about, Aunt Spiker had said early that morning. Is that very nice?
Yes, do you know?
You think?
I'm trying to remember what he lives with. His parents died, and he lives with his aunts.
Mm-hmm. Oh, please, he begged. I haven't met any other children for years and years, and there are going to be lots of them down there for me to play with, and perhaps I could help you with the tickets. Cut it out, Aunt Sponge snapped. Your Aunt Spiker and I are about to become millionaires, and the last thing we want is the likes of you messing things up and getting in the way. Is that nice?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
You want someone to talk to you like that?
That would be nice.
Yeah, not very nice. Later, when the evening of the first day came and the people had all gone home, the ants unlocked James's door and ordered him to go outside and pick up all the banana skins and orange peel and bits of paper that the crowd had left behind. Could I please have something to eat first? He asked. I haven't had a thing all day. No, they shouted, kicking him out the door. We're too busy to make food. We are counting our money. But it's dark, cried James. Get out, they yelled, and stay out until you've cleaned up all the mess. The door slammed. The key turned in the lock. Can you imagine that, Matthew?
Oh, yes.
If they didn't feed you and locked you out of the house? How would you feel?
That would be sad. His aunts are not being nice to him.
Yeah, how would you describe his aunts?
Well, he lived with his aunts. His parents died. His other parents won't let him do stuff.
Yeah, do
But
you think
these
his aunts are nice?
No.
Are they caring?
No, they're not caring. They're not letting the other children into this house, and he has no friends now.
Would you say they're greedy?
They're really greedy. Now you say about what happened.
I think they're really greedy.
Are they
Let's see
really,
what happens next.
is Jane upset? Well, here, let's go
Hungry and trembling, James stood alone out in the open, wondering what to do. The night was all around him now, and high overhead a wild white moon was riding in the sky. There was not a sound, not a movement anywhere. Most people, and especially small children, are often quite scared of being outdoors alone in the moonlight. Would you be scared outdoors alone when it's dark out?
Yeah, I would.
Everything is so deadly quiet, and the shadows are so long and black, and they keep turning into strange shapes that seem to move as you look at them, and the slightest little snap of a twig makes you jump. James felt exactly like that now. He stared straight ahead with large, frightened eyes, hardly daring to breathe. Not far away, in the middle of the garden, He could see the giant peach towering over everything else. Surely it was even bigger tonight than ever before. And what a dazzling sight it was! The moonlight was shining and glinting on its great curving sides, turning them to crystal and silver. It looked like a tremendous silver ball lying there in the grass. Silent, mysterious, and wonderful. And then, all at once, little shivers of excitement started running all over the skin on James's back. Something else, he told himself. Something stranger than ever this time is about to happen to me again soon. He was sure of it. He could feel it coming. He looked around him, wondering what on earth it was going to be. The garden lay soft and silver in the moonlight. The grass was wet with dew, and a million dewdrops were sparkling and twinkling like diamonds around his feet. And now suddenly, the whole place, the whole garden, seemed to be alive with magic. Almost without knowing what he was doing, as though drawn by some powerful magnet, James Henry Trotter started walking slowly toward the giant peach. He climbed over the fence that surrounded it and stood quietly beneath it, staring up at its great bulging sides. He put out a hand and touched it gently with the tip of one finger. It felt soft and warm and slightly furry. Like the skin of a baby mouse. He moved a step closer and rubbed his cheek lightly against the soft skin.
Excuse me.
And then suddenly, while he was doing this, he happened to notice that right beside him and below him, close to the ground, there was a hole in the side of the peach.
Okay.
Are you cold? What do you think is in the hole? Do you think James is going to look in the hole?
Say it again, I can't hear.
Do you think James is going to look in the hole?
No.
This is where it gets exciting. Are you ready?
This is James and the giant peach. He lives with his aunts. His parents died. Nothing he could do.
Are you ready to see what he does do?
Yes.
It was quite a large hole, the sort of thing an animal about the size of a fox might have made. James knelt down in front of it and poked his head and shoulders inside. He crawled in. He kept on crawling. This isn't just a hole, he thought excitedly. It's a tunnel. The tunnel was damp and murky, and all around him there was a curious bittersweet smell of fresh peach. The floor was soggy under his knees. The walls were wet and sticky, and peach juice was dripping from the ceiling. James opened his mouth and caught some of it on his tongue. It tasted delicious. He was crawling uphill now, as though the tunnel were leading straight toward the very center of the gigantic fruit. Every few seconds he paused and took a bite out of the wall. The peach flesh was sweet and juicy, and marvelously refreshing. He crawled on for several more yards, and then suddenly, bang! The top of his head bumped into something extremely hard blocking his way. He glanced up. In front of him there was a solid wall that seemed at first as though it were made of wood. He touched it with his fingers. It certainly felt like wood, except that it was very jagged and full of deep grooves. "Good heavens!" he said. "I know what it is. I've come to the stone in the middle of a peach." Then he noticed that there was a small door cut into the face of the peach stone. He gave a push. It swung open. He crawled through it, and before he had time to glance up and see where he was, he heard a voice saying, "Look who's here!" Another one said, "We've been waiting for you." James stopped and stared at the speakers, his face white with horror. He started to stand up, but his knees were shaking so much he had to sit down again on the floor. He glanced behind him, thinking he could bolt back into the tunnel the way he had come, but the doorway had disappeared. There was now only a solid brown wall behind him. James's large, frightened eyes traveled slowly around the room. The creatures, some sitting on chairs, others reclining on a sofa, were all watching him intently. Creatures? Or were they insects? An insect is usually something rather small, is it not? A grasshopper, for example, is an insect. So, what would you call it if you saw a grasshopper as large as a dog? You could hardly call that an insect, could you? There was an old green grasshopper as large as a dog, sitting on a stool directly across the room from James right now. And next to the old green grasshopper, there was an enormous spider. And next to the spider,
Hello? 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 Miss Samantha, how come you couldn't hear me? Saying hello and you didn't answer.
oh, because I was reading.
Excuse me, how come James doesn't feel happy about living with his aunts?
Well, how do you think he feels now? Do you know what just happened? Could you hear me reading when you were down there?
Down in the pellet stuck?
Mm-hmm.
He feels a little bit better.
What happened?
Well, he lives with his aunt's parents died and he doesn't know what to do. And why is he so upset that he has to live with his aunts?
Why do you think? Are they very nice to him?
No.
But look at what happened now. Who does he meet? That's what I'm reading you. Are you ready? This is a giant grasshopper. And next to the old green grasshopper, there was an enormous spider inside the peach.
That's bad.
I don't know. And next to the spider, there was a giant ladybug with 9 black spots on her scarlet shell. Each of these 3 was squatting upon a magnificent chair.
Oh, this is nice.
Did you see the picture?
Yeah.
On a sofa nearby, reclining comfortably in curled up positions, there was a centipede and an earthworm. On the floor over in the far corner, there was something thick and white that looked as though it might be a silkworm, but it was sleeping soundly and nobody was paying any attention to it. Every one of these creatures was at least as big as James himself, and in the strange greenish light that shone down from somewhere in the ceiling, they were absolutely terrifying to behold. "I'm hungry," the spider announced suddenly, staring hard at James. "I'm vanished," the old green grasshopper said. "So am I," cried the ladybug. The centipede sat up a little straighter on the sofa. "Everyone's famished," he said. "We need food." 4 pairs of round, black, glassy eyes were all fixed upon James. What do you think they're going to do?
Well, I don't know, so what's the problem?
All of the bugs are saying they're hungry and they're looking at James.
So, what was the last thing he did for the last page? I can't remember.
Listen.
So, he dig up a hole and... I figure we'll go with chapter 8. Is this the end of chapter 8?
We finish here.
Okay,
The centipede made a wriggling movement with his body, as though he were about to glide off the sofa, but he didn't. There was a long pause and a long silence. The spider, who happened to be a female spider, opened her mouth and ran a long, black tongue delicately over her lips. "Aren't you hungry?" she asked suddenly, leaning forward and addressing herself to James. Poor James was backed up against the far wall, shivering with fright and much too terrified to answer. "What's the matter with you?" the old green grasshopper asked. "You look positively ill." "He looks as though he's going to faint any second," the centipede said. "Oh my goodness, the poor thing," the ladybug cried. "I do believe he thinks it's him we are wanting to eat." There was a roar of laughter from all sides. "Oh dear," they said. "What an awful thought." "You mustn't be frightened," the ladybug said kindly. "We wouldn't dream of hurting you. You are one of us now. Didn't you know that? You are one of the crew. We're all in the same boat." "We've been waiting for you all day long," the old green grasshopper said. "We thought you were never going to turn up. I'm glad you made it." "So cheer up, my boy, cheer up," the centipede said. "And meanwhile, I wish you'd come over here and give me a hand with these boots. It takes me hours to get them all off by myself." All right. Are you ready to practice some writing? Uh-oh, that's not gonna get us to play crazy sight words. That's okay.
Let's sing the James and the Giant Peach song. Come over here and sing it with me, please. I really want to make another music show.
Okay, we can sing it once because you said please.
Hi, everybody. Guess what? Ready? Dance along and sing James and the Giant Peach. Hi. Wait, does that say the story?